I chose the corner table because corners hold secrets better than the middle of the room. The cafe smelled like toasted almonds and fresh steam, soft as a knitted scarf against my neck. Julia waved with that breezy smile that says nothing could possibly go wrong. I exhaled, letting warmth rise through my chest as the chatter blended into a gentle hum. For a second I believed life had settled, that the worst had finally slid into the rear view. The barista called our names, cups trembling lightly in his hands as if they already knew. "It's so nice to see you happy again," Julia said, casual as sunshine. "I honestly thought you and Ryan were past all that, after the other one." My spoon paused mid-air like it hit a red light. "After the what?" I asked, steady voice, racing pulse. She blinked, lips parting, then, "Oh, I assumed you knew. Rough patch. Another woman." The room narrowed to the clink of porcelain and the tiny quake in my wrist. "What woman, Julia?" I kept my smile soft, my questions sharper. She flinched. I shouldn't have said anything. Forget it. "No, go ahead. What did he tell you exactly?" "Just that he made a mistake months ago and you forgave him," she whispered. "Forgave him for something I never even knew about." The words burned like acid under my tongue. I changed the subject out loud while, inside, a quiet door unlocked and I stepped through it. The rest of the conversation blurred, like someone had smeared the edges of my morning. Julia kept talking about work, her new haircut, the weather, anything but what she'd said. I nodded, even laughed once, but every sound felt staged, every word brittle. Under the table, I rubbed my thumb against the rim of my coffee cup until it hurt. That tiny sting reminded me I was still here, still in control, at least on the outside. Inside, though, something had already cracked, and no one in that cafe could hear it. When Julia hugged me goodbye, her perfume clung to my coat. Sweet, familiar, nauseating. I smiled, told her to call me soon, and watched her disappear into the crowd. The moment she was gone, the silence hit me like static. I sat back down, staring at the swirl of foam on my untouched cappuccino. "After the other one." The phrase kept echoing, looping like a broken song lyric. It wasn't just a comment. It was a confession that never belonged to her. Outside, the wind had picked up, brushing against the windows with soft insistence. I stared at my reflection in the glass, calm, composed, perfectly deceiving. It was the same face Ryan had kissed goodnight for years, the same eyes that had trusted. A bitter laugh rose in my throat but never escaped. People passed by holding hands, sipping lattes, living lives that didn't ache like mine. And in that moment, I knew something simple and terrifying. This wasn't over. By the time I got home, Ryan's jacket was hanging by the door, careless as ever. The house smelled like him, cedar, detergent, and the faint trace of his cologne. It used to be comforting. Now it felt intrusive, like perfume in someone else's room. I placed my purse on the counter and stood there, the hum of the fridge filling the silence. "After the other one," I whispered, testing the words in my mouth like poison. They tasted metallic, cold, sharp, undeniable. He called from the living room, asking how brunch went. "Fine," I said. "Julia sends her love." The lie slipped out smooth, practiced, effortless. He didn't even look up from his phone. Of course he didn't. Part of me wanted to shout, to demand the truth right there. But the other part, the colder part, smiled at the idea of waiting. Because now, every word he spoke would sound different. Every gesture, every silence. I went upstairs, closed the door, and leaned against it, heart steady, mind racing. Julia's words had opened a door I didn't know existed, and there was no closing it now. I wasn't sure what I'd find behind it. Lies, faces, maybe a name I'd never heard before. But I knew this. I'd dig until the ground turned hollow. And when I reached the truth, I'd make sure he saw it too. Whatever this was, it had just begun. That evening, the kitchen smelled of garlic and butter, Ryan's idea of peace offerings. He stood at the stove humming off key, like nothing in the world could touch him. I leaned against the counter, arms folded, watching the rhythm of his movements. Each stir of the pan looked rehearsed, the same as every apology he never said. It almost made me laugh, how easy it was for him to perform sincerity. But I stayed quiet, studying him the way a detective studies a suspect. "You never told me you'd talk to Julia about us," I said softly, slicing through the calm. He glanced up, eyes wide for a moment before narrowing into that familiar charm. "Julia? Oh, that. She probably misunderstood something. You know how gossip spreads." He smiled, that easy grin that used to melt me. Now it just made me want to measure every word he'd ever said with a lie detector. "She said you told her I forgave you," I pressed, my voice steady but laced with fire. He blinked, slow, calculating, then shrugged like it meant nothing. "Well, technically you did. We moved past our little arguments." Arguments and affairs aren't the same thing. The words hovered at the edge of my lips. Instead, I looked at him, memorizing the curve of his jaw, the flicker in his eyes. He thought he was diffusing the tension, but all he was doing was tightening the noose. He reached for my hand and I let him, just to feel how steady my pulse had become. "Vanessa," he said, voice coated in feigned calm, "you're being paranoid." That word, paranoid, landed like a slap, too familiar, too practiced. He'd used it before, back when I questioned late nights and mysterious texts. I smiled, the kind of smile that hides sharp edges. "I'm not paranoid, Ryan. Just observant." He sighed, stirring the sauce like it held the answer to his salvation. I watched him, realizing how effortlessly he lied while pretending to love me. He turned, leaning against the counter, arms crossed, his confidence creeping back. "Can we not do this right now? I just wanted a nice evening." A nice evening. As if my peace of mind was a mood swing to be postponed. I nodded slowly, my gaze never leaving his face. "Sure," I said. "Let's not do this yet." The pause that followed was thick, heavy enough to make the air hum. He didn't ask what I meant. Maybe he already knew, deep down, that I'd stopped believing. He went back to humming, pretending nothing had shifted, but everything had. That song, the same off-key tune, grated against my nerves. I took my plate, sat at the table, and ate in silence, tasting metal instead of food. He joined me, made small talk, and smiled through the lie he called dinner. I watched his lips move, his words dissolving before they even reached me. Inside, a new voice whispered, calm, certain, merciless, "You won't question yourself this time." After dinner, he kissed my cheek, tasting like wine and nerves. He went upstairs to shower, humming again, as if the sound could wash away guilt. I stayed at the table, fingers tracing the rim of my glass until the condensation blurred. Every laugh we'd shared, every late night, "I love you," now played like a rerun I couldn't turn off. But this time, I wasn't crying over the script. I was rewriting it, scene by scene, in my head. The water ran above me, steady and hypnotic. I thought of Julia's hesitation, the way her eyes darted before she spoke. It wasn't gossip. It was guilt. She'd heard something she wasn't supposed to repeat. And Ryan? He'd grown too comfortable, mistaking my silence for forgiveness. I smiled faintly, realizing the power in being underestimated. If he wanted calm, I'd give him calm, until calm became his undoing. When he came downstairs, towel around his neck, he found me clearing the table. He thanked me for dinner, kissed the top of my head, and said he loved me. I looked up, smiled softly, and said, "I know." He didn't notice that something behind my eyes had already changed shape. That night, while he slept, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. The lie had begun to unravel, and I was going to pull every last thread. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the blinds, slicing the room into stripes of guilt. Ryan's side of the bed was empty. He'd left early, claiming a meeting. I lay still for a while, listening to the house breathe without him. There's a strange kind of silence that follows a lie once you finally hear it. It's not quiet. It hums, like static in your bones. And I could feel it, buzzing under my skin, daring me to follow it. I started small. I made coffee, the way he liked it, just to keep my hands busy. Then I walked to his office, the one he kept locked, but never well enough. The air inside smelled like printer ink and old arrogance. Stacks of receipts, business cards, and stray USBs cluttered his desk. He once called me too sentimental for keeping old photos. I guess his souvenirs just wore suits. And there it was. Hotel Grandview, March 14th. 2 guests, Suite 306. My pulse ticked like a metronome, steady and cruel. I picked up the receipt, staring at the names printed in neat black ink. Ryan Carter, and someone else. The name blurred for a second before it came into focus. Emma Wilkes. I didn't know her. But suddenly, I felt like I'd known her all my life. The woman who'd been living, laughing, touching what wasn't hers. I sat at his desk, staring at the phone like it might bite. My fingers hovered over the keypad before pressing each number with quiet precision. A cheerful receptionist answered, her voice too bright for what I was about to ask. "Hi," I said smoothly. "I'm calling about a billing error from March 14th, room 306, under Ryan Carter." There was a pause, a few clicks of a keyboard, and then, "Yes, that reservation was under Ryan Carter and Emma Wilkes." Her tone was innocent. Mine was not. "Thank you," I said, hanging up before my voice cracked. The room seemed smaller now, thick with proof and perfume I couldn't smell. Emma Wilkes. The name pulsed in my mind, sharp and rhythmic, like a wound reopening. I imagined her laugh. Did he tell her jokes I'd already heard? Did she wear my perfume? Or did he ask her not to, because it smelled too much like me? It was strange, the way pain could feel so calm once it turned into clarity. And I wasn't broken. Not anymore. I was awake. When I printed the receipt, the paper felt warm, almost alive in my hands. I placed it on the kitchen table, centered perfectly, like evidence waiting for trial. Then I sat down, waiting for the front door to open, listening to every passing car. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't even angry. Anger is fire. It burns fast. I needed something colder, something that lasts. And by the time I heard his keys, I already knew what I'd say. He walked in humming, loosening his tie, oblivious to the storm sitting at our kitchen table. "Hey, babe," he said, dropping his keys in the bowl. "You look serious. Everything okay?" I smiled, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes. "How is Chicago, Ryan?" He froze. "Chicago? You mean months ago?" "Yes," I said, my tone even, almost tender. "That trip, with Emma Wilkes." His breath hitched, a sound small enough to betray everything. He tried to laugh, the kind of nervous chuckle meant to soften truth. "Vanessa, come on. Where's this coming from?" I slid the printed receipt across the table. "The hotel told me. I just wanted to confirm." His face drained, the color slipping away like paint in rain. He reached for the paper, but I pulled it back, letting the silence stretch between us. "You lied to me," I said quietly. "To Julia, to everyone. But that's fine. Lies have a price." He stared, mouth opening, closing. No words, no excuses left to borrow. I stood, straightened my shoulders, feeling taller than I'd ever been. "I'm done asking questions," I said. "Now I start collecting answers." I walked past him, slow, deliberate, leaving the scent of coffee and resolve behind me. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I felt sharp, and he didn't even realize the reckoning had already begun. The week after our confrontation, Ryan acted like nothing had happened. He still kissed my forehead, still texted me hearts in the middle of the day. It was almost impressive, his ability to rewrite reality and expect me to read along. But I'd learned to play quiet, to smile just wide enough for him to believe it. He thought my silence meant surrender. He had no idea it was preparation. So, I planned a dinner. Something intimate, elegant. Soft lighting, good wine, the illusion of peace. I invited Julia, of course, and two of Ryan's coworkers, the ones who admired him most. He looked thrilled when I told him. "See," he said, "we're finding our rhythm again." I kissed his cheek and whispered, "Exactly." He didn't notice how still my eyes were when I said it. The night came, and the house glowed with candlelight. Music floated through the air, his playlist, not mine. He liked control even in ambiance, which made the irony sweeter. The table was perfect. Linen napkins, crystal glasses, the receipt hidden in a drawer nearby. Julia brought flowers, nervous smile trembling at the corners. I wanted to thank her for lighting the fuse she didn't know existed. Dinner began like any other evening, the clinking of glasses, polite laughter, harmless stories. Ryan was in his element, charming as ever, the perfect husband performing perfection. He touched my shoulder, poured my wine, even brushed a kiss against my hair. Every gesture rehearsed, every smile a scene. I nodded, laughed when I was supposed to, the actress he'd trained without realizing it. Except this time, I'd rewritten the ending. "So Ryan," I said lightly, swirling my glass, "why don't you tell everyone about your Chicago trip?" He looked up, fork halfway to his mouth. "Oh, that? Just business meetings." I tilted my head, feigning curiosity. "Business meetings at the Hotel Grandview?" The room quieted. You could hear the sound of his fork hitting the plate. Julia froze, wine glass trembling slightly in her hand. "And his coworkers?" They exchanged glances, sensing the tension but too polite to intervene. Ryan's voice came out thin. "Vanessa, please, not here." I smiled sweetly. "Oh, don't be shy. You love attention." He opened his mouth, searching for air, for lies that wouldn't come. The silence felt endless, delicious in its discomfort. Then I turned to his colleagues, still smiling. "I just thought they should meet the man who gives seminars on corporate ethics." The air shifted, thick, electric, alive with humiliation. Ryan's face went from pink to crimson, every muscle in his jaw trembling. Julia looked down, ashamed to even breathe, and one of his coworkers coughed awkwardly. "Vanessa," he hissed through his teeth, "we'll talk about this later." I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table, voice calm as glass. "Oh, I'm done talking, Ryan. Tonight's all about truth. And you love transparency, don't you?" He pushed his chair back, nearly knocking over his wine. The movement sent a dark splash across the white tablecloth, like a stain he couldn't hide. For a second, he looked like a man realizing the script had never been his. Then he turned and stormed out, muttering something about betrayal that almost made me laugh. The door slammed, the candles flickered, and every eye turned to me. I lifted my glass. "To honesty," I said softly. No one dared refuse the toast. When the guests finally left, the house smelled of smoke and spilled Merlot. I walked to the window, the city lights blinking like quiet witnesses. Outside, the night was clean, sharp, forgiving in a way he never was. I thought of the look on his face, how it fractured under the weight of his own lies. He'd built his image on control, but I'd taken that from him with a single question. And tomorrow, I'd finish what I started. The next morning, the house was eerily still. No humming, no footsteps, no apologies. Just sunlight leaking through the blinds, catching on the half-empty wine glasses from last night. My phone buzzed once, twice. Ryan's name lit up the screen, then vanished. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I already knew what the call meant. By noon, his company would have the email I'd sent. Clean, concise, undeniable. A forwarded receipt, a few photos from his cloud, a reminder that corporate ethics start at home. I made myself coffee, black this time, no sugar, no softness. It tasted like closure. Somewhere across town, he was probably sitting in an office, sweating through his perfect shirt. I imagined his boss's expression, the polite disgust, the quiet dismissal. All those years of performance, undone by one truth he thought I'd never find. For once, I didn't feel like the victim. I felt like the storm he never saw coming. When the HR call finally came, I was trimming roses in the backyard. The petals fell like tiny red secrets, one after another. He stood in the doorway, pale and furious, holding his phone like a weapon. "You destroyed my reputation," he shouted. I turned slowly, pruning shears in hand. "No, Ryan. You destroyed our marriage. I just sent the memo." His mouth opened, but the words never made it past his pride. He stepped closer, fists clenched, face twisted with rage he couldn't name. "You'll regret this," he spat, voice shaking more from fear than fury. I wiped my hands on my apron, calm as a surgeon between incisions. "I already did," I said, meeting his eyes. "For years. Now it's your turn." His gaze darted around the room, like he was looking for something to fix, someone to blame. But there was no one left here who still believed him. He pointed toward the box on the floor, his things, neatly packed and waiting. "You're kicking me out? After everything I've done for you?" I laughed, not cruelly, but honestly. Exactly after everything. He started to argue, voice cracking under its own weight, but I didn't listen. I'd spent too many nights listening to lies that sounded like love. This silence, this final, beautiful silence, was mine now. I walked to the door, opened it wide, and let the daylight pour in. It hit his face like judgment, unforgiving and pure. "Take your duffel," I said. "It's all that's left that's truly yours." He stared at me one last time, searching for weakness, for mercy. But I wasn't that woman anymore. He left, the door clicking shut behind him like a period at the end of a long, cruel sentence. When the door closed, the silence that followed didn't ache. It breathed. I stood there for a while, listening to it fill every corner of the house. No footsteps, no phone buzzing, no apologies rehearsed to sound sincere. Just me, my heartbeat, and the faint hum of freedom in the air. I looked around. The walls, the framed photos, the kitchen still smelling of burnt garlic. It was the same house, but it finally felt mine. I walked to the living room window, watching him load his bags into the car. For the first time, he didn't look powerful. He looked small, human, exposed. He caught my reflection in the glass and froze, waiting for me to flinch. I didn't. I just lifted my coffee cup in a slow, silent toast. He turned away, slammed the trunk, and drove off without looking back. The tires screamed on the pavement, but all I heard was peace. Later, I folded the divorce papers on the table beside the cooling mug. There were no tears, no trembling hands, just the steady rhythm of finality. He'd called her a mistake. I'd made sure she became his legacy. The line sounded almost poetic in my head, honest in a way he never was. Outside, the sky was painfully blue, as if the world was already moving on. And I was too, one calm breath at a time. Months later, the same cafe looked different. Brighter, maybe. Or maybe it was just me. The chatter sounded softer, the light warmer against the wooden tables. I sat by the window this time, no longer hiding in corners. Julia arrived a few minutes late, her face hesitant but kind, eyes full of apology. "Van," she said gently, setting her purse down. "I still feel awful. If I hadn't said anything..." I shook my head, smiling. "Don't. You didn't ruin anything. You just turned on the lights." She exhaled, relief flickering through her like wind through a candle. "I keep thinking about that night, the dinner, the way he looked at you." I laughed softly, stirring my coffee. Like a man realizing his mirror finally cracked. For a moment, neither of us spoke. We just watched the morning unfold outside. People rushing, laughing, living their stories, none of them knowing mine. And for the first time in a long time, that felt perfectly fine. Julia leaned forward. "How are you holding up, really?" "Better than ever," I said. "I bought my own place. Small, but it's mine." The words tasted clean, like a new language I'd finally learned to speak. Every cup, every picture frame, every quiet corner, it all belonged to me. There was no ghost of apology floating through the air, no need to forgive anyone. just the steady rhythm of my own breathing, exactly as it should be. I told Julia about the new place, a little apartment overlooking the park. Every morning, sunlight spills across my kitchen floor like forgiveness. I keep fresh flowers on the counter even when no one's coming over. It's funny how something as small as an empty chair can feel like peace. There's no tension waiting at the door, no footsteps that make me flinch. The quiet doesn't feel heavy anymore. It feels earned. Sometimes I think about the woman, Emma, not with anger, not even curiosity, just quiet understanding. She was a symptom, not the sickness. Ryan built his world on secrecy, on charm, polished to distraction. And I learned to build mine on truth, even when it hurt. It's sturdier that way, less glamorous maybe, but unbreakable. Julia smiled, eyes soft. You sound lighter. I am, I said, realizing how true it was. Freedom doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it just walks in quietly. One morning you wake up, and the weight that used to sit on your chest is gone. You make coffee, open the window, and it hits you. You're safe in your own life. That's the kind of peace no one can fake and no one can steal.